What's going on, Hustle family? My name is Tyler, and I will be your coach today. I'm so excited for this lesson. I'm going to be talking about the importance of briefing and debriefing events. It is something that we oftentimes look over as leaders, but every single event that we might have in our business, whether it's a luncheon, a business seminar, a launch party, any type of event whatsoever, every single event teaches us a different lesson. And it's important to really dive into that with different sectors of your team, whether it's a budget lesson, whether it's a personnel lesson or a structural lesson, or, even a lesson like what does an event look like in this specific organization versus even the last one that we might have been in. It might look differently here. What worked there might not work here. So every single event is full. It is jam-packed of necessary lessons to, quite frankly, get us to the next level. Okay, so let's talk about briefing and debriefing events. It's not either or, it's not nothing at all, but it's both and. We must brief and debrief every single event. It's so important. And I hope that I make the case in the next 10 minutes or so. Okay, leaders know how to create clear expectations for their teams, very clear expectations. No detail is missing, that we completely break down each and every expectation. Over communication is probably just enough communication. Okay, just enough communication is not enough communication. All right, so leaders know how to create clear expectations for their teams, each and every department, each and every personnel. Now you might communicate that through a line. And just remember, if you communicate certain expectations to certain department heads that need to reiterate that expectation and information to their team, we all the more need to communicate it as it comes from the top, because it will naturally go through a dilution process. And so we need to be sure that we over communicate, which is enough communication in regards to every single expectation that we could possibly think of. Because when we create clear expectations, it allows us as leaders to inspect what we expect. It gives us the ability and the right to inspect, to really dive into the details, to the nitty-gritty of it all, the things that make it tick, right? So when we expect, in other words, we're intentional with details and accountability, quite frankly. Because when we dive back in there and inspect the things that we communicated that we expect, it is holding certain leaders accountable, right? Different people on our team accountable. But when we inspect, rather, we can correct and improve what is needed, and then as well as replicate the wins, right? We're able to replicate the wins when we dive in there and ask ourselves, what brought this win, right? What was it that allowed us to have this win? So, and then that allows us to go back in there and replicate that same process and system. Asking yourself, okay, how'd you lose? Breaking that process down, tracing the steps, and say, okay, we don't want to do that anymore. How can we eliminate that? And then how can we replicate the process that made us win? That's why when we communicate clear expectations, which are in line with our vision for the event, that's in line with the vision of the company, we now, from that expectation, we can go through an inspection process, which, in other words, intentional with details and holds the team members accountable, but we can now replicate the wins and eliminate the loss process. Hope that makes sense. And the end of the event's result, the end result is many people are served well. Excuse the grammar there. Many people are served well. Our team finds fulfillment and our vision is reached. So clear expectations matter as a leader, okay? Because we want to serve a lot of people well. We want the event to be a win, right? Overall, our team, we want them to find fulfillment and not just be empty at the end of the night just for the sake of being empty, and they roll their eyes and dread the next event. You want them excited, right? That's momentum. Another conversation. And our vision for the event is reached only when we create clear expectations and communicate those clear expectations. Okay. So I'm going to talk about the briefing and debriefing room. All right, let's go now to the room. I found this online. I love this explanation of the importance of briefing and debriefing. Briefing and debriefing provide powerful tools for real improvement in communication and in teamwork. I bet your team says that they value a high level of communication and a high level of teamwork. We all want that. We expect that, right? So it provides powerful tools for real improvement in those two areas, generally speaking, in communication and in teamwork. Okay, now let's go to the briefing room. This is pre-event. This is before the event. You're with your staff. Let's just paint the picture. You're in your conference room. You are with, your team, whether it's just department heads, an all-team rally type thing, an all-team, meeting, a staff meeting, however it translates into your context. Let's go now to the room. Here are some things to discuss. Where to go. So communicating to your team very clearly at the event. Where do they go when they get there? Okay. If you're gonna rally again when you arrive, or if you have very clear positions for them to be in, communicate. I know it sounds elementary, and oftentimes people can just figure this stuff out, but we want to eliminate all confusion for your team and give people no reasons why they don't know what to do. We want to over communicate every single thing, every little detail. So communicate to them where to go. When they pull on the campus, when they pull on the event site, where do they go? I know I'm staying on this point, but this is a huge one, because you can show up to the site. You can have staff members over in this room, staff members over in this, lobby, staff members over in this courtyard, and kind of everywhere. Then you have to shoot another text. Hey, you got to rally them anyways. Might as well rally them via clear expectations in this meeting right here before the event day. Because once the event is here, it's game time. It's a rush. It's a blur. You know it. So where to go? Secondly, when to be there. So communicating a very clear time when your team needs to be in that spot. So don't just say, hey, for example, meet me there about 6. Okay, 6 to one person means 6 to something else, right? 6 to somebody like me, I'm getting there. I'm rolling up and sitting there at 5:40. 6 o'clock to another team member might mean around 6:15. If you say around 6, this is why we need to be very clear, communicating that, hey, 6 sharp. This is when we begin this, this evening. So communicate that this time is a sharp time. It's a hard time. Call time is this, not a minute later. Okay. So when to be there. So where to go when they get there, and when to be in that spot that you told them to go. Okay. I know it's very elementary, but I promise you, even in some of the greatest professionals that I've ever worked with, this could be a whole thing. Okay. Number 3, what to do. So setting your team up for a win, and they'll find much more fulfillment when you set them up for said win. Okay. So what to do when they get to the spot you told them to go in that specific time. So what to do? What exactly do they do? Don't say, oh, just, love on the people, make everybody feel welcome. Well, what does that look like? Maybe they need to go through a certain type of hospitality training, or you tell them in your culture, in your environment, this is the way that it looks. The way that hospitality looks at Disney, it's different than hospitality at State Farm Insurance. Right? So communicate to them, this is exactly what it looks like here, but just being very clear in that expectation on what to do. Okay. Excuse me. Number 4, when to leave. So this is one, it's oftentimes easily overlooked by leaders. But what usually happens is they have an incredible time up to this point. And then you have about 10, 15 minutes of leaders looking at each other, team members looking at each other saying, hey, when did Tyler say we could leave? When do we leave? They're kind of confused. You don't want them ending the evening. Let's say it's the evening event. Let's just paint the picture. You don't want them ending the evening on a confused note, right? You want them to leave the evening on a clear note, a celebratory note, not a confused note, right? So exactly when to leave. Say when the crowd dies down, 8:15, you are dismissed. And maybe even encouraging the department leaders, if this translates to your context, to maybe lead that moment, kind of rally them up, thank them, etc., celebrate them. But where to go, when to be there, what to do when they get there, and then when to leave that spot. Okay. At debriefing, so this is post-event. They've had a day, they've had some time to kind of rest up, etc. But once you get back at it, once it's still fresh, don't wait too long. But once it's still fresh, this is when you rally them back up. And these are some things that you discuss at debriefing. What worked? Not everything's going to work, but what actually worked? What worked really well? And the more you celebrate something, the more that you replicate something, right? The more that it's done more. So it's really important to assess the wins. What was a win? And then breaking down that process to say, how can we replicate this in some sort of fashion at every single thing that we do? This is obviously a picture of one of our values. And so it's very, very important to talk about what worked. What was a win at this event? Was it the flow of traffic? Was it the communication from the platform? Was it the certain type of, food that you got? Was it the cotton candy machine? Was it the petting farm, petting zoo, whatever, what worked all the way from your systems, structure, strategy to the lipstick parts of it, right? To the fun parts, to the pizzazz, every little detail. Did parking work? Did social media work? Did we get a return of our investment with our time? Working through every little detail, what worked? This is a big one. Secondly, what didn't work? It's important to assess the losses. And hey, by the way, don't throw the baby out the bathwater. If something didn't work, maybe just take a moment to talk about why didn't it work? Is it an easy tune-up? Is it an easy switch? Maybe the personnel in that position just sucked, and you can discuss that offline, right? Maybe it's an easy switch up. So don't throw the whole thing out, but really assess the process of what did not work. Why didn't it work? It's important to ask yourself these things. Why? Break the process down, and then do what you need to do to eliminate that. Okay. What was missing? So what could have taken it to the next level? Man, what were those few pieces in the puzzle, those connecting points that could have just made the thing soar? What was missing? I think this is a really important point that's oftentimes overlooked. What was confusing? What was confusing? Was the flow of traffic confusing? Was it confusing if we were eating before or after the event? Was it confusing on where somebody should sit? Maybe there's a VIP at the event and they naturally assume, this happens, they naturally assume that they have a special seat. And maybe it was confusing on where they should take a seat. But thinking through every little process and asking yourself and your team, because your team, they should be honest, hopefully, on what was confusing about the event. Now, when I talk about the event, I don't just mean when the doors open, right? I mean the whole flow from start to finish, the entire experience. So like I said, social media, marketing campaigns, that type of stuff, different types of promotion, even your processes and how you planned the event. What are some things as a leader you could kind of look into the mirror and learn yourself? Could I have set my team up better? Did I make it confusing for my team? Right? These kind of things. Having some type of self-assessment. And then if you're really brave, which is a good thing to do from time to time, having a team assessment, asking them about your performance. because maybe you thought you were clear, but you were actually confusing. Maybe you were too vague. And that's a real thing that happens. So what worked, what didn't work, what was missing, what was confusing? And then lastly, but not least, what could I delegate? Oh, this is a big one. Now, of course, you need to have a certain amount of events, and certain people need to, to in essence, prove themselves over time that they're worthy to be delegated to. I understand that. And we were all there at some points, and we all are still there at certain points in different manners. But what can I delegate? What can I pass off to make my load lighter that I can focus on the bigger items? And we don't have time here to go into a full, 2-hour teaching on delegation and strategy with delegation. But my kind of rule of thumb is, if somebody can do something 50, 60% as good as what I can, as effective and efficient as I can, that's when I begin to pass that thing off. Okay. Maybe one day I'll get on here and talk about just the cycle of delegation and succession, etc. But what can I delegate? So what worked, what didn't work, what was missing, what was confusing, and what can I delegate? And maybe that's a question that you ask yourselves personally, maybe offline. Okay. Just you and a notepad asking yourself that question. I hope this helped today. I know this is probably not a super common or expected or, demanded type of teaching, but these things matter, because again, when you do this well, this is the end result. Boom. Many people are served well. Your team finds fulfillment and your vision is reached. I know this matters to you. It matters to me. So I know how much it matters to you as well. But until your next event, do whatever you need to do to get back in, at the drawing board and plan really well with your team. Think through these things, apply these things. This will only work if you work it. But until then, hey, hustle game, keep it strong. Talk to you soon.